They looked at her skin. They looked at her hoodie. And they made the biggest mistake of their lives. Captain Ryan Sterling thought he was the king of the tarmac. He thought the $70 million Bombardier Global 7500 behind him was his castle, and he was the gatekeeper. He looked at the woman standing in the rain, a woman he assumed was nothing more than lost cleaning staff, and he sneered. He didn't know that the signature on his paycheck matched the ID in her pocket. He didn't know that in less than an hour his career would be over, and the woman he'd just humiliated would be the one stripping the epaulets off his shoulders. This is the story of arrogance, prejudice, and the hardest hit of karma Teterboro Airport has ever seen. The rain at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey wasn't just falling, it was punishing. It came down in icy grey sheets, turning the tarmac into a slick mirror that reflected the dreary October sky. Teterboro was the playground of the elite, the gateway for the billionaires of New York City to escape to the Hamptons, London, or Dubai, without ever having to touch shoulders with the general public. In the distance, the hangars stood like temples of wealth, but amidst the sleek machinery and the smell of jet fuel, a solitary figure was walking across the wet pavement, far from the shelter of the VIP terminal. Alara Banks pulled the hood of her oversized charcoal grey sweatshirt tighter around her face. At 32, Alara had the kind of face that people often misread. It was soft, youthful, and usually adorned with a warm smile. Today, however, that smile was gone. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, were focused on the massive steel bird waiting at the end of the red carpet runner. She was tired. It had been a grueling 48 hours in a biolab in Boston, finalizing the patent for a synthetic enzyme that was about to revolutionize how the world treated early-stage Alzheimer's. She hadn't slept. She hadn't showered in a luxury hotel. She had grabbed a nap on a lab bench and a coffee from a vending machine. She looked rough. Her leggings were splashed with mud from a cab that had dropped her off too far from the gate, and her sneakers were soaked. To the casual observer, Alara looked like a college student who had lost her way, or perhaps a member of the cleaning crew arriving late for a shift. She kept her head down, clutching a battered leather backpack against her chest to keep it dry. Inside that bag was a laptop worth more than most cars and documents that represented a net worth hovering in the low billions. But Alara didn't wear her money. She didn't see the point. She grew up in a neighborhood where flashing cash meant getting robbed, and she had carried that street-smart humility into the boardroom. Ahead of her sat the Obsidian King. It was a masterpiece of aviation engineering, a Bombardier Global 7500. It was the longest-range business jet in the world, capable of flying non-stop from New York to Hong Kong. It was painted a custom matte black with gold trim, a beast of luxury that cost $73 million before customizations. And the customizations inside were worth another 10. Alara picked up her pace. She just wanted to get on board, drink a glass of champagne, and sleep until they landed in Paris. Standing at the bottom of the air stairs, sheltered by the overhang of the jet's fuselage, were two people. The first was Captain Ryan Sterling. Ryan was a man who looked like he had been cast in a movie to play a pilot. He was in his late 50s, with silver hair coiffed to aerodynamic perfection, a jawline that could cut glass, and a uniform that was pressed so sharply it looked uncomfortable. He exuded an air of arrogant competence. He was a man who believed that flying a billionaire's jet made him a billionaire by association. Next to him was Tara Blair, the lead flight attendant. Tara was beautiful in a cold, manufactured way. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a tight bun. Her red lipstick was applied with surgical precision, and her uniform was tailored to accentuate her figure. She was checking her phone, looking bored and annoyed by the weather. Alara reached the edge of the red carpet. She stepped onto it, leaving a muddy footprint on the pristine crimson fabric. Captain Sterling looked up. His eyes narrowed instantly. He didn't see a passenger. He didn't see a human being. He saw a stain on his perfect tableau. "Hey!" Ryan barked, his voice booming over the sound of the rain and the distant whine of APU turbines. "You get off the carpet!" Alara stopped blinking against the rain. She lowered her hood slightly. "Excuse me, the carpet," Ryan snapped, pointing a manicured finger at her muddy sneakers. "You're tracking mud all over it. Do you have any idea how much it costs to dry clean that? Get on the tarmac." Alara looked down at her feet, then back up at him. She was too tired for this. "I'm heading up the stairs, Captain. It won't matter in a second." She took another step. Rian stepped forward, physically blocking the base of the stairs. He crossed his arms over his chest, his gold stripes gleaming. "You are certainly not going up these stairs. The service entrance for the cleaning crew is on the other side of the hangar. You're at the wrong plane, and you're late. Now beat it before I call security." Alara froze. The cold rain was seeping into her bones, but a different kind of heat was starting to rise in her chest. "Cleaning crew." Alara repeated, her voice calm but hardening. "Captain, I'm not the cleaning crew. I'm the passenger." Terra, who had been ignoring the exchange, finally looked up. She scanned Alara from head to toe, the soggy hoodie, the no-makeup face, the frizzy hair, the mud. She let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a cruel sound. "You," Terra scoffed, covering her mouth, as if suppressing a giggle. "Sweetie, look at you. This is a Bombardier Global 7500, not a Greyhound bus. You're obviously confused. The staff shuttle is probably waiting for you by the gate. Go on, Shu." Alara took a deep breath. She shifted her backpack. "My name is Alara Banks. Check your manifest." Ryan didn't even blink. He didn't check a clipboard. He didn't look at a tablet. He just sneered. "I don't need to check a manifest to know that you don't belong on this jet. We are waiting for a VIP, a very important, very wealthy individual. Not a whatever you are." "I am the VIP," Alara said, stepping closer. The wind whipped her hair across her face. "Now get out of my way. I'm cold, I'm tired, and I want to board." Rian placed a hand on her shoulder and shoved her back. It wasn't a hard shove, but it was firm enough to make her stumble on the slick tarmac. "Listen to me, you little liar." Ryan hissed, his face inches from hers. "I don't have time for panhandlers or crazy fans trying to sneak a peek at the rich and famous. If you take one more step toward this aircraft, I will have you arrested for trespassing. Get lost." Alara regained her balance. The shove had shocked her. In her world, the world of high-stakes biotech and boardrooms, people fought with words, with lawyers, with stock prices. No one had put their hands on her in anger since she was a child. She looked at Ryan Sterling, really looked at him. She saw the fear behind the arrogance. He was a man terrified of losing his status, so he punched down at anyone he perceived as lower than him. And right now, in his eyes, Alara was the dirt beneath his polished shoes. "You touched me," Alara said quietly. "And I'll do it again if you don't evacuate the area," Rian threatened. He turned to Terra. "Tiff, call the FBO security. Tell them we have a vagrant harassing the flight crew." "On it, Ryan," Terra said, pulling out her phone with a smirk. She held the phone up as if filming Alara. "Say cheese, sweetie. This is going on my story. Things you see at the airport. #trashy. Alara didn't move. She stood her ground in the rain. I'm giving you one chance, Captain Sterling. One chance to fix this. Look at your iPad. Look at the passenger profile. Look at the photo ID on file. I don't take orders from street rats, Ryan shouted, losing his composure. Do you know who owns this plane? This jet belongs to the Banks Corp Holdings. Do you know who that is? That is a multinational conglomerate. The owner is a distinguished, powerful individual, not some wet hoodie-wearing girl from the ghetto. The racism was subtle-coded, but it hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Girl from the ghetto. Alara's jaw tightened. I see, she said. So you have a specific image of what the owner looks like. The owner is a person of class, Tara chimed in, looking up from her phone. Someone who knows how to dress. Someone who wouldn't be caught dead looking like a drowned rat. Honestly, it's embarrassing that you're even standing near the plane. You're bringing down the property value. Last warning, Alara said. The rain was dripping off her nose now. Let me board, or you will regret this day for the rest of your life. Ryan laughed. It was a deep belly laugh that echoed off the fuselage. Regret. The only thing I regret is that security is taking so long to drag you away. You want to play games, fine. Ryan walked halfway up the stairs to the plane's cabin, placing himself on a pedestal above her. He looked down like a king addressing a peasant. I've flown Saudis, I've flown Russian oligarchs, I've flown tech billionaires from Silicon Valley. Ryan proclaimed, his voice booming. I know money. I can smell money. And you darlings smell like wet dog and desperation. You're a scammer, probably trying to get on board to steal some silverware or snap a selfie for your little Instagram. It's pathetic. Is that what you think? Alara asked, her voice dropping an octave. She reached into her pocket. Don't! Ryan yelled, flinching as if she were pulling a weapon. Alara slowly withdrew her phone. The screen was wet, but she tapped it twice. She wasn't calling the police. She wasn't calling security. She was calling the one man Ryan Sterling feared more than God. She dialed the number for Marcel Thorne. Marcel was the CEO of Apex Aviation Management, the company Alara paid $4 million a year to manage her aircraft, hire her crew, and ensure her travel was seamless. Marcel was a shark in a suit, and he answered on the first ring. Ms. Banks. Marcel's voice came through clear, despite the wind. We were tracking your car. You should be boarding the Obsidian right now. Is everything all right? The pilot hasn't filed the departure clearance yet. Alara put the phone on speaker, turning the volume all the way up. She held it out like a shield. Marcel, Alara said, staring dead into Ryan's eyes. I'm at the foot of the stairs, but there seems to be a problem. The crew is refusing to let me board. What? Marcel's voice crackled with confusion. Refusing. Who is refusing? Captain Sterling and Flight Attendant Blair, Alara said clearly. They seem to be under the impression that I am... What was the word? Ryan, a vagrant, a street rat. Ryan's face went pale. The color drained from his skin so fast it looked like he'd seen a ghost. He recognized that voice. He had sat in Marcel Thorne's office 2 years ago begging for this contract because it paid 30% above the industry standard. Miss Banks, Ryan whispered. His voice trembled. Wait, Banks? Yes, Marcel. Alara continued, not breaking eye contact with the terrified pilot. They have physically blocked the stairs. The captain shoved me. Tara is currently filming me for her social media, calling me trashy. I'm standing in the rain, Marcel. I've been here for 10 minutes. Silence on the other end of the line. A cold, deadly silence. Then Marcel spoke. His voice was low, vibrating with suppressed rage. "Put him on! Put Sterling on the phone, now!" Alara took a step forward. Ryan didn't move back this time. He looked like he was about to vomit. Terra had lowered her phone, her mouth hanging open in a perfect O of horror. "Captain," Alara said, extending her wet phone toward him. "It's for you." Ryan's hand shook as he reached for the device. He held it to his ear, like it was a bomb. "Mr. Thorne," Ryan stammered. "Ryan!" Marcel's voice was so loud, Alara could hear it from where she stood. "You have exactly 3 seconds to explain to me why the owner of the aircraft, the woman who signs your checks, the woman who pays for your daughter's private school tuition via your bonus, is standing in the rain while you insult her." "Sir, I didn't know," Ryan sputtered, sweat mixing with the rain on his forehead. She didn't look like... She's wearing a hoodie, sir. She looked like a what, Ryan?" Marcel cut him off. "Careful. The next words out of your mouth will determine if you just get fired or if I make sure you never fly a kite again, let alone a jet." Ryan looked at Alara. Really looked at her. He saw the intelligence now. He saw the power. And he realized that the hoodie wasn't a sign of poverty. It was a sign of someone so wealthy they didn't need to impress anyone. I made a mistake, sir," Ryan whispered. "Hand the phone back to Ms. Banks," Marcel ordered. Ryan handed the phone back to Alara with 2 hands bowing his head. He looked like a dog that had been kicked. "I'm here, Marcel," Alara said, putting the phone back to her ear. "Alara, I am mortified," Marcel said. "I can have a replacement crew there in 45 minutes. I'll fly them in by helicopter from JFK. Just say the word." Alara looked at Ryan, who was now trembling. She looked at Terra, who was frantically trying to delete the video she had just taken. "No, Marcel," Alara said. "I don't want to wait 45 minutes. I want to get to Paris. I have a meeting." "Okay," Marcel said. "So you're going to fly with them?" "Oh, I'm going to fly," Alara said, a cold smile finally touching her lips. "But things are going to be very different on this flight. I'm boarding now. Don't hang up." Alara ended the call, but she didn't put the phone away. She looked at Ryan. "Get out of my way," she said softly. Ryan scrambled aside, nearly tripping over his own feet. "Ms. Banks, please, Not a word," she silenced him with a finger. "Get inside. Get in the cockpit. Start the engines. If you say one word to me that isn't altitude or airspeed, you're done." She walked up the stairs, her muddy sneakers stomping onto the plush, cream-colored carpet of the cabin. She stopped in the galley and turned to Terra. Terra was shaking. "Miss Banks, I am so sorry, I just thought..." Alara looked at Terra's perfect uniform, then down at her own wet clothes. "Here is what is going to happen," Alara said. "I am going to the master bedroom to change. You are going to take my wet clothes, and you are going to dry them, by hand, with a hairdryer if you have to. And then you are going to sit in the jump seat, and you are not going to speak to me for the entire 7-hour flight. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am," Terra squeaked. "Good," Alara said, "because when we land in Paris, that's when the real conversation starts." The flight to Paris was usually Alara's sanctuary. It was 7 hours where no one could reach her. No board members could demand answers, and the phone didn't ring. But tonight, the atmosphere inside the Obsidian King was toxic. The cabin was pressurized to a comfortable 4,000 feet. but the tension made the air feel thin and suffocating. Alara had changed out of her wet clothes. She now wore a simple cashmere lounge set, cream-colored, soft, and impeccably clean. She sat in the main club suite, her laptop open, but the screen was dark. She wasn't working. She was watching. Terra Blair emerged from the galley. She had reapplied her lipstick, but her hands were visibly trembling. She carried a silver tray with a crystal flute of Krug Grand Cuvée and a small plate of warm nuts. "Ms. Banks," Terra said, her voice pitched high in a desperate attempt at customer service cheerfulness. I prepared the vintage champagne you prefer, and the macadamia nuts are warmed to exactly 90 degrees, just how the flight manual specifies. Alara didn't look at the tray. She looked at Terra's eyes. "Put it down," Alara said, her voice devoid of emotion. Terra set the tray down on the side table. The crystal clinked loudly in the silent cabin. Is there anything else I can get you? I could prepare the bed in the stateroom. Or perhaps a hot stone massage, I'm certified." Alara finally turned her head. "Terra, do you know why I bought this specific jet?" Terra swallowed hard. Because it's the best. Because it has a range of 7,700 nautical miles, Alara said. It allows me to fly from New York to Beijing without stopping. It is a machine designed for efficiency. It does exactly what it is paid to do. She paused, letting the silence stretch. "Unlike you." Terra flinched. "Ms. Banks about outside. I was just following Captain Sterling's lead. He told me you were a security threat. I was scared. I didn't mean those things." Alara laughed softly. It wasn't a nice laugh. "You called me trashy for your Instagram followers. That wasn't fear, Terra. That was entertainment. You looked at a black woman in a hoodie and decided she was content for your social media feed." Alara picked up the glass of champagne. She held it up to the light, inspecting the bubbles. "Unlock your phone," Alara said. "Excuse me." "Your phone. Unlock it and give it to me." Terra hesitated, her eyes darting to the cockpit door, as if hoping Ryan would come out and save her. But Ryan was hiding behind the reinforced door, probably flying the plane with sweaty palms. Terra slowly pulled her phone from her pocket, unlocked it with her Face ID, and handed it over. Alara took the phone. She opened Instagram. She went to the recently deleted folder. And there it was. The video of Alara standing in the rain. Terra had deleted it, but she hadn't wiped the backup. Alara hit restore. "What are you doing?" Terra whispered, panic rising. "I'm airdropping this to my laptop," Alara said calmly. "Evidence. Ms. Banks, please, I'll lose my license. I'll be blacklisted," Terra pleaded, tears finally spilling over. "You should have thought about that before you tried to humiliate me," Alara said. She handed the phone back. "Now go to the galley. Close the curtain. Do not come out unless the plane is on fire. I will pour my own water." Terra fled. She practically ran to the back of the plane, and Alara heard the aggressive swish of the heavy privacy curtain being yanked shut. Alara was alone again, but she wasn't relaxing. Her mind, honed by years of scientific research and corporate warfare, was connecting dots. Ryan Sterling had been too defensive. It was one thing to be a snob. It was another thing to be terrified. When Alara had threatened to call Marcel Thorne, Ryan hadn't just looked worried about his job. He looked like a man who was afraid of going to jail. Why Alara looked around the cabin. It was immaculate. But something felt off. She stood up and walked toward the master stateroom at the back of the jet. She opened the closet where she kept her personal items. Her expensive toiletries were there. Her spare clothes were there. But on the top shelf, pushed all the way to the back behind a stack of towels, she saw something glinting. She reached up and pulled it down. It was a bottle of tequila. Don Julio, 1942. Alara didn't drink tequila. She hated it, and she certainly didn't stock it on her plane. She turned the bottle over. It was half empty. She looked closer at the shelf. There was a faint circular stain on the wood, a water ring from a glass that had been set down carelessly. Alara's heart began to beat faster. This wasn't just about a rude crew. Someone had been using her plane. Someone had been partying on her $73 million asset without her permission. She needed proof, and she had 7 hours to find it. Alara sat back down in the club chair, but this time she pulled up the aircraft's onboard management system on her laptop. As the owner, she had administrator access that bypassed the crew's interface. She pulled up the flight logs. According to the official manifest submitted to Marcel Thorne's management company, the Obsidian King had been grounded in Teterboro for the last 10 days for routine avionics maintenance. Alara cross-referenced this with the engine cycle data. The Bombardier Global 7500 transmits engine data in real time to the manufacturer for diagnostics. It's hard to delete that. She scanned the dates. October 12th. Engine start. Duration 4 hours, 20 minutes. October 15th. Engine start. Duration 4 hours, 15 minutes. The plane hadn't been in maintenance. It had flown somewhere 4 hours away, stayed for 3 days, and flown back. Alara opened the GPS history map. It was password protected. She typed in her master override code. The map loaded. A bright red line traced a path from Teterboro, New Jersey, south over the Atlantic Ocean, landing in Nassau, Bahamas. Alara felt a cold fury settle in her stomach. They had stolen her jet. Ryan Sterling and Tara Blair had taken her aircraft on an unauthorized charter. This is known in the industry as a ghost flight. Unscrupulous pilots will take cash under the table from shady clients, drug dealers, disgraced celebrities, people who don't want to be on a manifest, and fly them using the owner's fuel and the owner's plane, pocketing the cash tax-free. It was highly illegal. It was dangerous. And it voided her insurance. If they had crashed in the Bahamas, Alara would have been liable for millions, and her reputation would have been destroyed. She looked at the dates again. The flight to Nassau happened last weekend. Alara stood up and walked to the cockpit door. She didn't knock. She keyed in the access code on the keypad, a code Ryan probably assumed she didn't know. The door clicked and hissed open. Ryan jumped in his seat so hard he knocked his headset askew. The cockpit was dark, lit only by the glow of the instrument panels and the stars outside. "Ms. Banks," Ryan gasped, grabbing the yoke. You can't be in here. Federal regulations state. Save the regulations, Ryan," Alara said, stepping into the small space. She closed the door behind her. The hum of the wind was louder here. "We need to talk about Nassau." The silence that followed was heavier than the plane itself. Ryan's face, illuminated by the green glow of the radar, turned a sickly shade of grey. He didn't speak. He stared straight ahead at the artificial horizon. "I checked the engine cycles," Alara lied smoothly, "and I have a friend at Nassau Air Traffic Control who just sent me a picture of my tail number on the tarmac last Saturday." She didn't have a friend in Nassau, but Ryan didn't know that. I can explain, Ryan stammered, sweat beading on his neck. Who was it? Alara asked softly. Who did you fly? Was it a bachelor party, a drug run, or just some friends of yours? It was a charter, Ryan whispered, his resistance crumbling. A private cash charter, a rapper. He needed to get to a festival, and his plane broke down. He offered 50,000 cash. Cash Ms. Banks. 50,000, Alara repeated. You risked a $70 million asset for $50,000. I have debts. Ryan snapped, his voice cracking. My alimony. The house. I needed the money. We didn't hurt the plane. We cleaned it perfectly. You didn't clean it perfectly, Alara said. You left a bottle of tequila in my closet, and you treated the owner of this plane like a stray dog. Because you were paranoid, I was someone investigating you. Ryan turned to look at her, tears in his eyes. A grown man, a captain reduced to a weeping child. Please, Miss Banks, I'm begging you. If you report this to the FAA, I lose my license. I go to prison. I'm 58 years old. I have nothing else. Alara looked at him. She thought about the rain. She thought about him blocking the stairs. She thought about him shoving her. You should have thought about your debts before you put your hands on me. Ryan, she said coldly. What are you going to do? He asked, his voice trembling. Alara looked at the navigation display. They were 3 hours from Paris. Keep flying, Alara said. Get us to Le Bourget. Land this plane smoothly. If you bump the tires on the runway, I will be very upset. And then, Alara said, turning to leave the cockpit, justice will be served. She walked out and closed the door. She went back to her seat. She didn't sleep. She opened her laptop and composed an email. But she didn't send it to Marcel Thorne. She sent it to the French National Police, La Police Nationale, and CC'd the FBI International Operations Division. Subject: urgent unauthorized use of aircraft, grand larceny, incoming flight N7 from 0AB. She attached the engine logs. She attached the video file from Tara's phone. Then she sat back and waited for the sunrise. The karma wasn't going to be hard. It was going to be nuclear. The sun began to bleed over the horizon as the Obsidian King began its descent toward Paris. The sky turned a bruised purple, then a fiery orange, illuminating the cloud deck below. Inside the cabin, the silence was absolute. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. Alara hadn't slept. She had spent the last 4 hours organizing her digital life, ensuring that every piece of evidence regarding the unauthorized Bahamas flight was backed up on 3 different secure servers. She had also reviewed the employment contracts for both Ryan Sterling and Tara Blair. She knew their clauses, their severance packages, which were now void, and their liabilities better than they did. Tara sat in the jump seat near the galley, her eyes red and puffy. She had spent the flight staring at the curtain, terrified of what was happening on the other side. Every time the plane hit a pocket of turbulence, she flinched as if expecting Alara to burst through the curtain and throw her off the plane. In the cockpit, Ryan Sterling was a man unraveling. His hands, usually steady on the yoke, were slick with sweat. He had flown this approach into Le Bourget 100 times. It was a simple arrival. But today the runway lights looked like judgment eyes staring up at him. Le Bourget Tower, Global 750 Alpha Bravo, establishing localizer runway 27, Ryan said into the radio. His voice sounded thin, stripped of its usual bravado. 750 Alpha Bravo Le Bourget Tower, cleared to land runway 27, Winds calm. "Welcome to Paris," the controller replied cheerfully. Rian clicked the mic. "Cleared to land." He glanced at the co-pilot, a young man named Jason, who had been hired only a month ago and knew nothing of the Bahamas scheme. Jason looked at Ryan with concern. "Captain, you okay?" "You look pale," Jason said. "Just fly the damn plane, Jason." Ryan snapped, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand. Ryan was running calculations in his head. "If she fires me, I lose the pension. But maybe if I beg Marcel Thorne, maybe if I offer to pay back the fuel cost for the Bahamas trip, I can salvage this. I can go fly cargo in Alaska. No one has to know." He was bargaining with a fate that had already been sealed. The wheels touched down on the French tarmac with a gentle scrrt, a perfect buttery landing. Alara didn't even spill her water. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Paris." Tera's voice came over the intercom, trembling audibly. "Please remain seated until we come to a complete stop." The massive jet slowed, turning off the main runway and taxiing toward the private hangars of Le Bourget. This was the most exclusive airport in Europe for private aviation. It was where heads of state and A-list celebrities landed. Alara looked out the window. She saw the familiar hangars. She saw the ramp agents waiting with their orange wands. And then she saw the lights. Blue lights, flashing rhythmically against the grey morning mist. There were 3 cars parked right at the designated parking spot for the Obsidian King. They weren't black limousines waiting to whisk her to the Ritz. They were white hatchbacks with blue stripes. Gendarmerie des Transports Aériens, the French Air Transport Police. Alara adjusted her blazer. She checked her reflection in the darkened window. She looked powerful. She looked ready. In the cockpit, Ryan saw the cars too. "What is that?" Jason asked, squinting. "Is there a VIP arrival next to us?" Ryan's heart stopped. It didn't just skip a beat. It seized. He knew exactly who those cars were for. "No," Ryan whispered. The blood drained from his face, leaving him looking like a corpse. No. She didn't. She wouldn't. He slammed on the brakes a little too hard as they approached the chocks. The plane lurched to a halt. Ryan sat there for a moment, the engines winding down with a high-pitched whine that sounded like a dying scream. He couldn't move. His hands were frozen to the throttle quadrant. "Captain," Jason asked. "Checklist complete. Engines cut. We're clear to open the door." Rian didn't answer. He just stared out the window at the 6 uniformed officers stepping out of the police vehicles. They weren't smiling. One of them had a pair of handcuffs looped over his belt. The cabin door opened with a mechanical hiss, the stairs slowly extending down to the tarmac. Tera rushed to the door, her instinct to be the perfect hostess kicking in despite her terror. She plastered a fake smile on her face, ready to greet the ground crew. Instead, she found herself face to chest with a stern-faced French officer. "Bonjour," the officer said, stepping onto the stairs. He didn't wait for permission. He walked right up, followed by 2 others. "We are looking for Captain Ryan Sterling and Flight Attendant Tera Blair." Tera gasped, backing away, until she hit the galley wall. That's me. I'm Tera." "And the captain?" the officer asked. He's in the cockpit," she squeaked. Alara emerged from the main cabin. She walked with a slow, predatory grace. She stopped in the middle of the galley, looking at the officers. "Bonjour, officers," Alara said in perfect fluent French. "I am Alara Banks, I am the owner of this aircraft and the complainant." The lead officer, a tall man with silvering hair named Commandant Lefebvre, nodded respectfully to her. "Mademoiselle Banks, we received your dossier. The evidence regarding the unauthorized flight N75VAB to Nassau is quite comprehensive. We also have the allegations of attempted assault and harassment at Teterboro." "Excellent," Alara said. "They are all yours." At that moment, the cockpit door opened. Ryan Sterling stumbled out. He had taken off his jacket as if trying to shed his rank would somehow save him. He saw the police and stopped dead. "Captain Sterling," Commandant Lefebvre said, his voice booming in the small space. "Please step forward." "There's been a mistake," Ryan said, his hands held up in surrender. "This is a civil matter. It's an employment dispute. You have no jurisdiction." "Grand larceny of an aircraft is not a civil matter, monsieur," Lefebvre said coldly. "Nor is fraud. Nor is falsifying international flight logs. You entered the Bahamas illegally. You returned illegally. And you did it with stolen property." "Alara!" Ryan screamed, turning to her. "Ms. Banks, please don't let them take me. I'll pay you back. I have a family." Alara looked at him. She remembered the sneer on his face when he called her a street rat. She remembered him blocking the stairs. "You have a family, Ryan?" Alara asked calmly. "That's funny. When I was standing in the rain, you didn't care if I had a family. You didn't care if I was a human being. You only cared about the patch of mud on your carpet. I was stressed I made a mistake." Ryan pleaded, tears streaming down his face. The arrogance was completely gone, replaced by a pathetic, groveling fear. "You didn't make a mistake," Alara said, stepping closer to him. "You made a choice. You chose to judge me based on how I looked. You chose to steal from me because you thought I was too stupid to notice. And you chose to treat me like garbage because you thought you were untouchable." She leaned in her voice, a whisper that hit him harder than a shout. "You are fired, Ryan. Effective immediately. For cause. Which means no severance, no pension. And I will personally make sure that every aviation authority from the FAA to EASA knows exactly what you did. You will never sit in a cockpit again unless you're cleaning it." Ryan collapsed. Literally. His knees gave way, and he slumped against the cockpit door, sobbing into his hands. Commandant Lefebvre nodded to his men. "Take him." Two officers grabbed Ryan by the arms and hauled him up. They spun him around, and the metallic click-click of handcuffs echoed through the luxury jet. Tara let out a sob. "Ms. Banks, I didn't fly the plane. I didn't steal it. I just served the drinks." Alara turned her gaze to Tara. "You were an accomplice, Tara," Alara said. "You were on that flight to Nassau. I saw the receipts for the catering. You signed them. And beyond that, you filmed a passenger for mockery. You violated my privacy and the privacy of this aircraft." Alara pulled out a white envelope from her purse. She tossed it onto the galley counter. "That is a letter from my legal team," Alara said. "We are suing you for breach of confidentiality and defamation, and naturally you are fired." "Please," Tara wailed, as an officer gently but firmly took her arm. "I can't go to a French jail. I don't speak French." "You have plenty of time to learn," Alara said coldly. The officers marched them out. Ryan Sterling, the man who thought he was a king, was dragged down the stairs of the jet he used to command, weeping like a child. Tara followed her perfect makeup, ruined by tears. Below on the tarmac, a few airport workers had gathered. They watched as the pilot and flight attendant were shoved into the back of the police cars. Alara stood at the top of the stairs. The morning wind blew her hair back. She took a deep breath of the crisp Paris air. It tasted like victory. Commandant Lefebvre paused at the bottom of the stairs. "We will need a formal statement from you at the station, Mademoiselle Banks." "I'll be there in an hour, Commandant," Alara said. "I just need to make one phone call." Lefebvre tipped his cap and walked away. Alara pulled out her phone. She dialed Marcel Thorne again. "Alara," Marcel answered on the first ring. "Did you land? Is everything okay?" "I landed safely, Marcel," Alara said, watching the police cars drive away with flashing lights. "But the Obsidian King is currently without a crew." "What happened?" Marcel asked. "The trash has been taken out," Alara said. "Send me a new pilot. I have a meeting in Tokyo in 3 days. And Marcel, yes, make sure the next pilot knows that I wear hoodies." The holding cell at the Police aux Frontières station near Le Bourget Airport was a stark contrast to the cream leather and gold trim of the Obsidian King. The walls were painted a peeling institutional green, and the air smelled of stale tobacco and industrial cleaner. Captain Ryan Sterling sat on a hard wooden bench, his elbows on his knees, his face buried in his hands. His pristine uniform was rumpled, the epaulets crooked. For the first time in 30 years, he wasn't looking down at the world from 45,000 feet. He was at rock bottom. Across the hallway, in a separate holding cell, he could hear Tara Blair sobbing. She had been crying for 2 hours straight. She had asked for her phone 10 times. She had asked for a makeup wipe. She had asked to speak to her followers. The French officers, unimpressed by her influencer status, had simply closed the heavy steel door. A court-appointed French attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Madame Renard, entered Rian's cell. She didn't offer a handshake. She sat down and opened a thin file. "Monsieur Sterling," she said, her English heavily accented but precise. "I have reviewed the preliminary charges filed by Mademoiselle Banks and the aviation authorities. It is severe." "It's a misunderstanding," Rian croaked, his voice hoarse. "I can fix this. I just need to call Marcel Thorne. He'll vouch for me." Madame Renard looked at him with pity. "Monsieur Thorne has already issued a statement. He has terminated your contract with Apex Aviation immediately. He is also cooperating with the FBI regarding the interstate transport of stolen property. He has labeled you a rogue actor. You have no allies, monsieur." Rian felt the blood drain from his face. The rogue actor label was a death sentence in aviation. It meant he was uninsurable. What are the charges? Grand theft of an aircraft, falsification of international flight logs, illegal entry into the Bahamas, customs fraud, and because you used the owner's fuel and resources for personal gain embezzlement, over $100,000. Madame Renard closed the file. The prosecutors are not looking for a fine captain. They are looking for prison time. Minimum 3 years here in France, followed by extradition to the United States. Ryan slumped back against the cold wall. He thought about the $50,000 he had made from the wrapper for the illegal charter. It seemed like such a small, pathetic amount of money now. He had traded his life, his reputation, and his freedom for a handful of cash and the arrogant belief that he was smarter than the black woman in the hoodie. While Ryan and Tara were processing the end of their lives, Alara Banks was stepping into the beginning of her new one. 48 hours after the arrest, the story had gone global. It wasn't just industry news. It was a cultural firestorm. The image of Alara standing in the rain, juxtaposed with the mugshot of a disheveled Ryan Sterling, was splashed across every major news outlet. CNN ran a segment titled "The Hoodie Heiress," how biotech billionaire Alara Banks exposed the dark side of private aviation. TMZ was less polite. Their headline read, "Grounded snobby crew arrested after trying to kick owner off her own 75-year-old jet." Terra had become the internet's main character of the day, and the internet was cruel. The video she had taken of Alara, the one Alara had recovered from the trash bin, had been leaked as part of the public police report. The audio of Terra mocking Alara's clothes had gone viral. TikTok users were duetting the video shredding Terra's arrogance. Her follower count didn't just drop, it evaporated. She wasn't an influencer anymore. She was a cautionary tale. Alara sat in the back of a black Mercedes Maybach, watching the Parisian streets blur by. She scrolled through the headlines on her tablet, her face unreadable. She didn't feel a rush of joy. She didn't feel the need to gloat. What she felt was a heavy, solemn vindication. She had spent her life being underestimated. In the labs at MIT, professors had assumed she was an administrative assistant. In boardrooms, investors had looked past her to address her white male subordinates. She was used to the invisibility, but she had learned that invisibility was a superpower. It allowed her to see people for who they really were before they knew she was watching. Ryan and Terra hadn't just insulted her, they had revealed their character. And character Alara knew was the only currency that mattered. The car slowed as it approached the Palais des Congrès de Paris. A crowd of paparazzi was waiting. Alara adjusted her blazer. She was wearing a custom-tailored suit today, sharp and powerful, but underneath she wore a simple, high-quality grey t-shirt. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her hair was natural, her makeup minimal. She wasn't going to change who she was to fit their idea of a billionaire. They would have to adjust their idea of a billionaire to fit her. She stepped out of the car. The flashbulbs erupted like a lightning storm. Reporters shouted her name. "Ms. Banks, is it true you fired the whole crew?" Alara. "What do you have to say to the pilot?" Alara stopped on the steps. She turned to the cameras. The noise died down. "I have nothing to say to the pilot," Alara said, her voice clear and calm. "But I have something to say to everyone else. Respect is not a transaction. It is a requirement. And if you think a person's worth is determined by their wardrobe, you are going to make very expensive mistakes." She turned and walked into the summit, leaving the chaos behind her. 3 days later, it was time to leave Paris. The weather had cleared. The sky over Le Bourget was a piercing, brilliant blue. The air was crisp, smelling of autumn leaves and jet fuel. Alara's car pulled onto the tarmac. The Obsidian King sat waiting, its black fuselage gleaming like a dark jewel under the sun. It looked different today, lighter, cleansed. Standing at the bottom of the stairs was a new figure. Captain Jean-Luc Dubois was a man cut from a different cloth than Rian Sterling. He was 60 years old, with salt and pepper hair cut short, and a face lined by decades of smiling. His uniform was immaculate, but he didn't wear it like a costume. He wore it like a responsibility. Next to him stood the new flight attendant, a young woman named Elena. She was smiling warmly, her hands clasped in front of her. As Alara stepped out of the car, wearing her signature charcoal hoodie and leggings, Captain Dubois didn't blink. He didn't scan her outfit for price tags. He didn't look for a designer bag. He walked forward with a brisk, energetic stride and extended his hand. "Mademoiselle Banks," he said, his voice deep and reassuring. "It is an honor. I have completed the pre-flight inspection personally. The aircraft is in perfect condition. We have filed a flight plan for Tokyo via the northern route to catch the tailwinds. It should be a very smooth ride." Alara shook his hand. His grip was firm, honest. Thank you, Captain Dubois. I trust Marcel briefed you on my preferences. He did, Dubois said, a twinkle in his eye. We have stocked the galley with sparkling water, fresh fruit, and I believe Elena has secured a specific vintage of chamomile tea you enjoy. Also, he paused, lowering his voice slightly. I have checked the closets, mademoiselle. There is no tequila. Alara smiled. It was a genuine, full smile that reached her eyes. Good. And one more thing, Dubois added, gesturing to the red carpet runner that led up the stairs. It had been freshly cleaned. You may walk on the carpet, or on the tarmac, or anywhere you please. It is your plane, after all. Alara looked at the red carpet. She thought about the mud. She thought about the way Ryan had blocked her path, a gatekeeper to her own success. I think I'll take the stairs, she said. She hoisted her battered backpack onto her shoulder. She walked up the steps, her sneakers soft on the metal. When she reached the top, she turned back. The police cars were gone. The rain was gone. The arrogance was gone. Below her, Captain Dubois gave her a crisp salute. It wasn't a salute to her money. It was a salute to her. Alara stepped inside the cabin. The air was fresh. The heavy curtain was pulled back, letting the light flood in. She walked to her favorite seat, sat down, and opened her laptop. Ready for departure, Ms. Banks? The intercom chimed. Ready, Alara whispered. Let's fly. The engines of the Obsidian King roared to life, a powerful, deep thrum that vibrated through the floor. The jet taxied out, turning toward the runway. As it accelerated, pushing Alara back into her seat, she watched the ground fall away. Paris became a patchwork of grey and green, getting smaller and smaller until the cars, the buildings, and the people who judged her were nothing more than invisible specks. She was at 45,000 feet. And finally the view was clear. And that, my friends, is why you never ever judge a book by its cover, especially when that book owns the library. Ryan and Terra learned the hard way that arrogance is the fastest route to the bottom, and that true power doesn't need to shout. It just needs to make one phone call. What did you think of Alara's response? Did the punishment fit the crime, or was it too harsh? Let me know down in the comments. I really want to hear your take on this airfield justice. If you enjoyed this story of massive karma, hitting the right targets, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories like this, delivered straight to your feed, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a flight. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay humble, or someone might just humble you.